Check out the latest highlights from the Nourishing You podcast. Yeah, so you've alluded to the fact that there's different types of fasting. So I'd love to, and you've mentioned data-driven fasting, which is your protocol. Can we unpack that? So what is data-driven fasting?
Yeah.
Why and how did you create it? And then how does it differ from other types of fasting?
Yeah, it's just using a simple blood sugar machine. There's a lot of talk about CGMs and having a continuous glucose monitor, and my wife and then my son, who's recently acquired type 1 diabetes, which is a whole interesting story. Both are wearing CGMs that I can see full time, and I've learned a lot from that. But really what data-driven fasting does is it uses your glucose. You think, hey, I think I might be hungry. I'll test my blood glucose. Is it lower than normal? Yes or no? You validate your hunger. Yes, it's time to eat. No, maybe I'll wait just a little bit longer. So it's sort of a way of calibrating whether you really need to refuel. And basically your glucose has to be burnt off first in your body before the other fuels, be it your dietary fat or your body fat. So really you need to deplete your blood glucose, and then once that goes down, your dietary fat and your body fat will start to be used. So if your blood glucose is always high, you're never going to be burning body fat or your dietary fat. So you just need to wait just a little bit longer, and that gives you really nice guidance of when it's time to eat. And then the flip side of that is it's a really handy way of finding out what works for you and your metabolism. If you eat something and your blood sugars are sky high immediately, maybe that's not the best food for you. Or if you load up on a whole lot of fat and your blood sugars don't come down for a long time, you learn, hey, that, bulletproof coffee is maybe not ideal. My blood sugars are stable, but they never come back down again. So you sort of find that balance quickly. And you also learn to validate your hunger. And I think that's a fundamental problem, is that most people have lost track of the true hunger, especially if they go for weeks without eating. They push through hunger, they forget their true hunger signals, and they get to a point where they don't understand the true hunger signals. So validating your hunger with your blood sugar helps you to retrain your hunger signals. We call it hunger training. You get to a point where you can understand whether you're really hungry or you can wait just a little bit longer.
That's such an important point. And I think I want to kind of go backwards a little bit and have you maybe say this again, or let's recap it again, because most people, when they think about testing their blood sugars, they're looking at their blood sugar after they eat, like an hour or two after they eat, to see, did it go too high or did it stay too high after I ate certain foods, and then adjusting their foods and their carbohydrates so they don't get such spikes, which is very important also. But at the same time, what you're saying and what makes this so unique is that you're saying, okay, that's fine to use your blood sugar after the fact, but what if we go backwards and use it before we eat as a way to judge when it's time to eat and not overlook the fact that we need to deplete the energy in our blood first before we start to refuel and put things back in our mouth. So that is such a critical difference between what you're doing and any other strategy for blood sugar management, weight loss, fat loss, maintaining muscle mass, all of those things. So I just wanted to reiterate that point, because that's so huge.
Yeah, it's a really big deal. And a lot of people are getting hold of CGMs, continuous glucose monitors, getting all enthusiastic about keeping flatline blood sugars. But those people often go, okay, I need to get rid of all my carbohydrates. So they go on my veggies and any plant-based foods. And my protein will maybe spike my blood sugar and it'll insulin a little bit, so I'll avoid those, and then I'm just drinking butter and MCT oil to keep flatline blood sugars, and all of a sudden they're really hungry. And because fat to satiety is pretty much the quickest way to become more obese. You might manage the symptom of you'll achieve stable blood sugars, but you'll just eat more and more and more, trying to get the nutrients your body needs. So you need to allow some fluctuation, some healthy variability in blood sugars. You don't want your blood sugars to be skyrocketing up because you had this massive meal that takes a long time to come back down. But it's really what is your we call it your personalized trigger. Over the first 3 days, you find out what is your typical blood sugar before you eat, and then take the average of that 3 days and then try to wait until you achieve that personal trigger again. And then if you successfully do that, we don't want you to do it too quickly, but if you successfully do that, you then get to wait a little bit longer until your blood sugar is a little bit lower. And you just, like, you progressive overload in the gym. If you try to go in and lift 300 kilos the first day, you're going to break yourself. But if you start with a little bit and then, okay, I did that well, I can add a little bit more weight. It's sort of progressive overload to your metabolism.
If you enjoyed this short episode, check out our full library on our NAMP YouTube channel, where you can catch up or learn more. Keep in mind that the information on the NAMP podcast is for educational purposes only and should not be considered medical or legal advice. The NAMP is not liable or responsible for any harm, damage, or illness arising from the use of the information contained herein. By listening to the information on this podcast, you agree to defend, indemnify, and hold harmless the NAMP and all agents. Copyright NAMP, all rights reserved.